The story I'm going to read today involves one of these, and I'm sure you've all found them when you've been out for your walks. A pine cone. Now there's usually more than one, but in this story it was the very last pine cone, and two squirrels ended up having an argument about it. The story is called The Squirrels Who Squabbled by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. I hope you enjoy it. Some really nice pictures too. In a towering forest where summer had been, the cool air bit fresh and the mosses grew green. As autumn edged in and the sky raged red, the sleepiest creatures got ready for bed. While up in a tree swung a flighty young squirrel, who everyone knew as Spontaneous Cyril. Spontaneous means you don't plan anything, you just do things when you feel like it. Now, most foresty folks had seen to their needs through the plentiful months of mushrooms and seeds. They had built up their stores so they'd be well fed through the frosting of winter that glittered ahead. You see them gathering all the things they need for the winter to come. Plentiful months, meaning there's lots of things around for them to gather. But Cyril, he lived in the now and the here. He'd adventured and partied his way through the year. There he is having a party with his friends. So his cupboards were bare. His cupboard was empty. His hollow was bare. He hadn't a mouthful of food anywhere. Looking sad. But perhaps he should have been gathering. But wait! What was that? Over there. Take a look. A single lone pine cone wedged in a nook. He squeaked with delight, and for a very good reason, for inside were the very last nuts of the season. But Cyril wasn't alone. There were more hungry eyes. Yes, plan-ahead Bruce had his eyes on the prize. Though he'd gathered a mountain of bounty, hard fought, Bruce was convinced he was one pine cone short. "I simply must have it," he wistfully cried, as he dreamt of the fresh, juicy pine nuts inside. So, as Cyril set off on his way to the ground, Bruce, he was also last pine cone bound. They sprinted and scurried with no time to gamble. They scratched at the bark in their scampering scramble. But their panic and haste shook the tips of the spruce, that's the name of the tree, and the pine cone, it trembled, and then it came loose. Both squirrels gave chase at a lightning pace. This was the start of a wild, nutty race. "It's mine!" shouted Cyril. "No, mine!" hollered Bruce. "You don't stand a chance! Give up! It's no use!" "I'm hungry!" cried Cyril. "This cone is not yours!" "Stay back!" shouted Bruce. "This cone's for my stores." Can anyone spot who else is in the woods? I wonder what's going to happen next. It bounced over bushes. Oh no, it boinged, that's a good word. It boinged over bushes and flew through the air. It binged on the nose of a slumbering bear. Slumbering's a lovely word for sleeping. It bounced over boulders and came to a stop. Oh, look, it's balancing on the rock. Then teetered and wobbled and quivered and plop. Both squirrels followed, diving in. Oh, the water was fast. Would they learn that they needed each other at last? Don't think so, not yet. Each was intent on how he could win, so they didn't quite notice a bird sweeping in. Cyril and Bruce, they watched in dismay as their cone disappeared. Up, up and away. "Come back!" yelled Cyril. "There are nuts!" exclaimed Bruce. But all hope was gone. It was simply no use. And meanwhile they drifted right up to the ledge. Greed, it was driving them over the edge. Cyril and Bruce, they had taken a fall. They were paying the price for wanting it all. They'd squandered their chances to team up and share. Would their nutty young hopes simply end in despair? Looks very bad. What's going to happen? I can see. You can't see. Shall I tell you? Bruised and bedraggled, they swept past dry land. Cyril grabbed at a branch with a trembling hand. Catching Bruce with the other, he heaved and he huffed, then dragged him to safety with panting and puffs. They stared at the sky, quite lost in deep thought, until Bruce looked at Cyril and let out a snort. "Ha! How silly we are!" he proclaimed, all a jiggle. "How greedy I've been!" spluttered Bruce with a giggle. "We shall change from today. May the squabbling cease." Let me stop. "We should celebrate, seeing we're both in one piece." Ah, I'm glad it's turning out well. I was a bit worried for them in that water. From that day forward, they made a great pair. They would gather together and found they could share. Yes, Cyril and Bruce, they knew in the end that the best thing to share is a laugh with your friend. Now, I've got two, so that would have solved the problem, wouldn't it? But the pine cone nuts inside, the pine nuts, could have been shared all along. At least they found a friend in the end. And they learnt a lesson that it's not worth arguing about little things like that. It's much better to stop and have a nice time with your friends. Maybe Cyril will start gathering his nuts a bit earlier next time. And maybe Bruce will realise he doesn't have to have all the nuts. I hope you enjoyed the story. Maybe you can join me for another one soon.